The crystalline spires of Thorian Prime pierced the violet sky like frozen lightning, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 setting suns. In her private chambers high above the capital city, Commander Riva Enther stood before a holographic display, her silver-scaled hands trembling as she reviewed the footage for the 20th time. The images showed the pacification of the Centauri colonies, peaceful settlements reduced to ash by Thorian warships. Thousands of civilians, their only crime being their refusal to submit to Thorian rule, disappeared in flashes of plasma fire. The Empire called it necessity. Riva called it genocide. Her second-in-command, Krell, materialized in the doorway. "The High Council awaits, Commander." His expression was carefully neutral, but Riva caught the slight tension in his shoulders. He knew what she planned to do. "They won't wait much longer," Riva replied, straightening her ceremonial armor. The deep blue metal gleamed in the fading light, decorated with the symbols of her many victories. Victories that now tasted like ash in her mouth. The council chamber was a marvel of Thorian architecture, a vast dome of living crystal that hummed with psychic energy. 12 council members sat in elevated thrones, their ancient faces impassive as Riva approached. At the center sat High Lord Vexthor, her father, his scales darkened with age and power. "Commander Enther," he intoned, "you stand before us to present your report on the Centauri campaign. Proceed." Riva activated her neural link, projecting not the sanitized victory speech they expected, but the raw footage of the massacre. "This is what victory looks like," she declared, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "This is what we've become." Gasps and mutters filled the air. High Lord Vexthor's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You dare." "I dare to speak the truth," Riva responded, her heart pounding but her voice steady. "We were meant to be guardians, not conquerors. The Thorian Empire was built on principles of protection and guidance. Now we slaughter innocents and call it progress. Enough." Her father's psychic shout made the crystal walls shudder. "You forget yourself, daughter. The Empire's methods are not yours to question. Someone must." Riva stood her ground, even as guards began to materialize around her. The Centauri sought only independence. They posed no threat. "Their blood is on our hands." High Lord Vexthor rose from his throne, his massive frame casting a shadow over the chamber. "You leave me no choice. Riva Enther, you are stripped of your rank and citizenship. For the crime of sedition, you are sentenced to exile on the prison world of Tartarus." The guards moved in, energy restraints ready. Riva didn't resist. She'd known the price of her defiance. But as they led her away, she locked eyes with her father one final time. "You can exile me," she said softly, "but you cannot exile the truth. The Empire is rotting from within, and sooner or later, everyone will see it." The journey to Tartarus passed in a blur of hyperspace and silence. The prison world lived up to its mythological namesake, a hellscape of frozen wastelands and toxic storms. The guards dropped her with nothing but a basic survival suit and 6 hours of oxygen. "Your father sends his regards," the chief guard sneered before their ship departed, leaving Riva alone on the hostile surface. She activated her suit's environmental shields, watching the aurora of poisonous gases dance overhead. Tartarus was meant to be her tomb, but Riva had no intention of dying. The Empire had forgotten something crucial: before she was a commander, she was a survivor. In the distance, through the swirling storms, she spotted the ruins of an old mining facility. If she could reach it, she might find supplies, maybe even a working communications array. It wasn't much, but it was a start. As Riva began her trek across the frozen waste, she allowed herself a grim smile. The Empire had taught her everything she knew about warfare, strategy, and survival. Now she would use those lessons against them. They thought exile would silence her. Instead, it had set her free. The truth about the Empire needed to be exposed, and the innocent needed protection. Riva didn't know how yet, but she would find a way. Her father had cast her out, believing she would die forgotten and alone. He would live to regret that mistake. 3 months into her exile on Tartarus, Riva had learned every cruel secret of the prison world. The mining facility, abandoned decades ago, became her fortress. She'd restored partial power to the lower levels, salvaged equipment, and most importantly, discovered why the Empire had really abandoned this world. Deep beneath the facility's frozen surface lay deposits of stellarite, a rare mineral capable of amplifying energy signatures to unprecedented levels. The Empire hadn't abandoned Tartarus, they'd hidden it, ensuring no other civilization would discover its potential. Riva was recording her findings when the facility's proximity alerts blared to life. Through the ancient security feeds, she watched a ship pierce the toxic atmosphere, not the sleek predatory lines of Thorian design, but something different. More practical. Utilitarian. The vessel touched down near the facility's main entrance, its hull already accumulating layers of crystalline frost. Riva grabbed her makeshift weapon, a mining laser she'd modified for combat, and moved to defensive positions. The airlock cycled, and through its frosted viewport, she saw environment suits unlike any she'd encountered before. 6 figures entered, weapons drawn but not aimed. Their leader held up empty hands, voice carrying through external speakers. "We're not here to fight. We picked up your signal modifications to the facility's beacon." Pretty clever. Riva kept her weapon ready. "You're human," she said, recognizing their form from Imperial archives. "This system is far from your territory." "These days, everywhere is our territory," the leader replied, removing his helmet to reveal weathered features and keen eyes. "Commander Thomas Kane, Earth Defense Force. Though defense is a bit of a misnomer since your empire started pushing into our colonies." "The empire is not mine," Riva said sharply. "Not anymore." Kane studied her with newfound interest. "So the rumors are true. The famous Commander Enther, exiled by her own father. Some say you're a traitor. Others call you a hero. I'm neither. I simply couldn't watch more innocents die for imperial ambition." Riva lowered her weapon slightly. "Why are you really here, Commander Kane?" "Because we're losing this war," Kane said bluntly. "The Empire's technology outmatches ours in every way. But we've got something they don't, desperation, and a willingness to try the impossible. We've been gathering intelligence, building a resistance network across multiple systems. When we detected your modifications to this facility's systems, we hoped. You hope to find an ally," Riva finished. "Someone who knows Thorian tactics and technology from the inside." Kane nodded. "The Empire thinks they broke you by sending you here. But you've survived. Adapted. That tells me everything I need to know about your strength." Riva considered his words. The facility's sensors showed no other ships in orbit, no signs of a trap. Either Kane was telling the truth, or this was an elaborate deception. But she'd seen enough deception in the Empire to recognize its absence. "Before I consider helping you," she said, "I need to know your true objective." "Revenge? Conquest? Survival," Kane replied without hesitation. "And justice, if we can manage it. The Empire needs to be stopped, not destroyed. The cycle of violence has to end somewhere." His word struck a chord. How many times had she argued the same principles before the High Council, only to be dismissed as naive? Here was a human, supposedly a primitive species by imperial standards, expressing the wisdom her own people had forgotten. "Show me," Riva said finally. "Show me this resistance of yours." Kane's ship, the Defiant, was a revelation. Where Thorian vessels were built for intimidation, this ship emphasized function and adaptability. Its crew was equally surprising, not just humans, but refugees from a dozen worlds touched by imperial expansion. Each had a story, a reason to fight. Lieutenant Sasha Petrov, the weapons officer, had lost her home colony to Imperial pacification. Yet she spoke of justice, not vengeance. Engineer June Park had modified Thorian technology to work with human systems, creating hybrid solutions that would have impressed even Imperial scientists. As Kane showed her their operation, Riva felt something she hadn't experienced since her exile: hope. These humans, despite their technological disadvantages, had built something remarkable. A network of survivors and rebels, all working together against impossible odds. In the ship's tactical room, Kane brought up a holographic display of known Imperial movements. "We've been gathering intel, but there are gaps. Huge ones. We know the Empire is planning something big, but we can't piece it together without understanding their command protocols." Riva stepped forward, her silver scales reflecting the holographic light. "Your intel is outdated. These formations." She gestured to several fleet positions. "They're not defensive positions. They're staging points. The Empire is preparing for a major offensive, likely targeting multiple systems simultaneously." The room fell silent. Kane's expression hardened. "How long?" "Months, at most. But we might have an advantage they don't expect." Riva brought up the facility's geological scans. Tartarus wasn't abandoned because it was hostile. It was hidden because of this. She highlighted the stellarite deposits. "With this mineral, we could enhance our ship's capabilities, maybe even match Imperial technology." "Mining it would take time we don't have," Kane objected. "Not if we work together," Riva countered. "I know Imperial mining techniques. Combined with your engineering innovations." She turned to face him. "Commander Kane, I've spent months alone on this world, planning revenge. But you've shown me a better path. If you'll have me, I want to join your resistance." Kane extended his hand, a human gesture of agreement. "Welcome aboard, Commander Enther." As Riva clasped his hand, she felt the weight of the moment. The Empire had meant Tartarus to be her end. Instead, it had become a beginning. They would need every advantage, every ally, every scrap of courage and innovation they could muster. The war for the galaxy's future was about to enter a new phase, and this time, Riva Enther would fight for something greater than empire or revenge. She would fight for hope. The extraction of stellarite from Tartarus's frozen depths proved more challenging than anyone had anticipated. 2 weeks into the operation, Riva stood in the Defiance engineering bay, watching June Park integrate the first refined crystals into the ship's power systems. The mineral pulsed with an inner light, like captured starfire. "Remarkable," June murmured, adjusting his scanning equipment. "The energy amplification is beyond anything we theorized. With enough stellarite, we could boost our shields, weapons, even our FTL drives to match Imperial specifications." Riva nodded, but her attention was drawn to the mineral's unusual resonance pattern. "These energy signatures, they're similar to something I saw in classified Imperial documents. Projects that even the High Council wasn't fully briefed on." Before she could elaborate, Commander Kane's voice came through the ship's comm system. "Riva, June, we need you in tactical. Now." They found Kane and Lieutenant Petrov studying a new set of intelligence reports, their faces grim. "3 more colonies gone dark," Sasha reported, highlighting sectors on the tactical display. "No distress signals, no signs of battle. They're just empty." "That's not the Empire's usual method," Riva said, frowning. "They prefer visible displays of force to send a message. This is something else." Kane pulled up additional data streams. "We managed to intercept some Imperial communications. Most were standard encrypted channels, but there's something else. A new frequency we've never seen before." June analyzed the transmission patterns. "These energy signatures, they're similar to the stellarite readings." Riva felt her scales bristle with sudden understanding. The Empire isn't just launching an offensive. They're testing something. A weapon that uses similar principles to Stellarite, but weaponized on a massive scale. How bad are we talking? Kane asked. If I'm right, they've found a way to harness stellar energy itself. A weapon that could strip the life from entire worlds without firing a shot. Riva's voice was heavy with the weight of revelation. That's what happened to those colonies. They were test sites. The tactical room fell silent as the implications sank in. It was Sasha who finally spoke. We need allies. More ships, more resources. We can't fight this alone. The Andoran Confederacy, Riva suggested. They've maintained independence from the Empire through advanced shield technology. And the Kethari nomad fleets, they have experience in guerrilla warfare. Kane nodded slowly. I have contacts in the outer colonies too. Independent worlds that have been waiting for a chance to strike back. But convincing them to work together won't be easy. Then we give them something they can't ignore, Riva said, pulling up the Stellarite data. June, how long would it take to create a working prototype of an enhanced shield system? With the crystals we have now? 3 days, maybe 4. The engineer's eyes lit up with possibility. If it works, we could demonstrate that Imperial technology isn't invincible. Over the next week, the Defiant became a hub of feverish activity. June and his team worked around the clock to integrate the Stellarite enhancements while Kane and Sasha reached out to potential allies. Riva focused on analyzing Imperial communication patterns, looking for clues about their mysterious weapon. Their first test of the enhanced systems came sooner than expected. An Imperial patrol detected their signal and jumped into the system, 2 destroyers, sleek and deadly. But instead of running, Kane gave the order to stand their ground. Shields at maximum, Sasha reported as the first destroyer opened fire. Stellarite enhancement active. The Imperial plasma bolts struck their shields and dissipated harmlessly. On the tactical display, Riva could see the enemy commander's confusion as their sensors tried to make sense of the Defiant's capabilities. They're calling for reinforcements, Riva warned, monitoring their communications. Kane smiled grimly. Good. Let them see what we can do. Sasha, target their engines. Non-lethal shots only. We want witnesses, not martyrs. The battle was brief but spectacular. The Defiant's enhanced weapons disabled both destroyers with surgical precision, leaving their crews alive to tell the tale of how a single human ship had bested Imperial warships. Send the signal, Kane ordered once the battle was done. To every independent world and resistance cell. Show them what we achieved here. Tell them there's hope. The response exceeded their expectations. Within days, ships began arriving, weathered human vessels, sleek Andoran cruisers, the solar-sailed ships of the Kethari. Each brought their own stories of Imperial oppression, their own reasons to fight. In the Defiant's newly established war room, Riva watched their alliance take shape. The Stellarite technology was shared, ships were modified, strategies developed. But more importantly, bridges were built between species that had never trusted each other before. We're still outnumbered, Kane said one evening, studying the growing fleet. And that weapon of theirs is still out there. True, Riva agreed. But we have something they don't expect. Unity. The Empire believes in strength through dominance. They've never faced strength through cooperation. As if to underscore her words, alerts suddenly blared throughout the ship. June's voice came through the comm, tense with urgency. Commander, you need to see this. We've decoded more of the Imperial transmissions. We know where they're building their weapon. The coordinates led to a system deep in Imperial space, officially listed as a restricted research zone. But the Stellarite signatures were unmistakable. The Empire's doomsday weapon was nearly complete. Riva met Kane's gaze, seeing her own determination reflected there. They had built their resistance, gathered their allies, and developed their technology. Now came the true test, whether their unlikely alliance could strike at the heart of imperial power and survive. The Empire had taught Riva that true strength came from fear and domination. But as she looked around at this diverse group of beings working together against impossible odds, she understood a deeper truth. Real strength came from unity, from fighting not for revenge or power, but for the right of all beings to live free. The final battle was approaching. And this time, they would be ready. The assembled resistance fleet hung in the shadows of a massive gas giant, their ship's Stellarite-enhanced systems running silent. Through the Defiance viewport, Riva watched the swirling storms below, reminded of Tartarus's toxic atmosphere. The memory seemed from another lifetime, though barely 4 months had passed since her exile. Commander Kane stood beside her, his reflection ghostly in the reinforced glass. The latest intelligence confirms it. The weapon installation, designation Project Eclipse, will be fully operational in 72 hours. Once it's active, they can target any system within range. The testings we detected weren't just demonstrations, Riva said softly. They were calibrations. Each dead world helped them perfect their targeting systems. She turned to face Kane, her violet eyes intense. How many ships responded to the call? 217. Andoran shield ships, Cathari raiders, independent vessels, even some Imperial deserters who heard about your defection. Kane managed a grim smile. Not bad for a bunch of resistance fighters. Their conversation was interrupted by June's arrival. The engineer's usually calm demeanor was troubled. Commanders, we have a problem. The Stellarite integration isn't holding in some of the modified ships. The power fluctuations are becoming unstable. Riva's scales rippled with concern. Show me. In engineering, holographic displays showed cascading energy patterns across multiple vessels. The Stellarite crystals were behaving erratically, their amplification effects becoming unpredictable. June pointed to specific data streams. The human and Cathari ships are holding steady, but the Andoran vessels are having complications. Their shield harmonics are interfering with the crystal resonance. Can you stabilize them? Kane asked. Not without completely rebuilding their shield matrices. We'd need weeks, maybe months. June's fingers flew over the controls. Right now, I can give them maybe 70% power before risking a catastrophic overload. Riva studied the readings, her military training calculating revised combat effectiveness. Even at reduced power, the enhanced ships were formidable, but against Imperial defenses. We have to adjust our strategy. The Andoran ships will need to hang back, provide long-range support instead of leading the assault as planned. The Andoran captains won't like that, Kane warned. They joined this fight to be on the front lines. Before Riva could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Lieutenant Petrov's voice crackled over the comm, multiple Imperial signatures detected. They're not patrol ships, it's a battle fleet. The 3 officers raced to the bridge. The tactical display showed a nightmare scenario. 12 Imperial warships, including 2 dreadnoughts, had emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system. Their energy signatures were masked, suggesting they'd been waiting in ambush. How did they find us? Kane demanded. Riva's blood ran cold as she analyzed their formation. They didn't. This is a staging area for their own operation. We didn't just find their weapon, we found their invasion fleet. The resistance fleet remained hidden in the gas giant's shadow, but discovery was inevitable. Hours passed in tense silence as they watched the Imperial ships establish a perimeter. Through intercepted communications, they learned the truth: this fleet would escort Project Eclipse to its first official target, Earth itself. In the war room, resistance leaders gathered for an emergency council. The Andoran commander, Varix, was particularly vocal. We should strike now, while we have surprise on our side. With unstable shields. Sasha countered. It would be suicide. Better to die fighting than hiding like cowards. Enough. Riva's voice cut through the argument. The Empire expects resistance. They expect us to react with anger, to throw ourselves at their defenses in a desperate assault. She activated a holographic display of the system. But they don't know everything we can do. Her plan was audacious. Instead of a direct assault, they would use the gas giant's massive electromagnetic field to mask a small strike team. While the main fleet engaged the Imperial ships in a hit-and-run attack, drawing their attention, the strike team would infiltrate Project Eclipse itself. A surgical strike, Kane nodded appreciatively. But whoever goes on that mission will likely not return, Riva finished. I know. That's why I'm leading it myself. The room erupted in protests, but Riva held firm. I know Imperial security protocols, override codes, and most importantly, I know how they think. This is our only chance to stop not just the weapon, but the invasion before it begins. Kane pulled her aside after the meeting. You don't have to do this. We can find another way. No, Riva said softly. We can't. You know as well as I do that this weapon changes everything. If we fail here, Earth dies. Then every other free world follows. She met his gaze steadily. My father built his empire on fear. It's time someone showed him what real courage looks like. The next 12 hours were a blur of preparation. June modified a stealth shuttle with experimental stellarite shielding. Sasha drilled with the fleet commanders, coordinating the elaborate deception that would cover the strike team's approach. The Andoran ships, despite their technical issues, volunteered to lead the distraction attack. As Riva prepared to board the shuttle with her hand-picked team, Kane stopped her one last time. Your father wanted you to die alone and forgotten on Tartarus. Instead, you built something he never could, true loyalty, freely given. He hesitated, then pulled her into a brief, fierce hug. Come back alive, Commander. That's an order. Riva felt the unfamiliar warmth of the gesture, so different from Imperial formality. Keep them safe, Thomas. Whatever happens, keep fighting. The Empire needs to learn that strength isn't about who can destroy the most, it's about who can protect what matters. The shuttle's engines hummed to life as the Resistance fleet prepared for battle. Through the viewport, Riva watched the gas giant storms rage, nature's own war eternal and indifferent. Soon those storms would hide their approach, giving them one chance to change the galaxy's future. She thought of her father, of the Empire's corruption, of all the lives lost to their endless quest for dominance. But she also thought of Kane's humanity, of June's brilliant dedication, of Sasha's fierce determination, of the unlikely family she'd found among these rebels. The Empire had taught her that love was weakness. But as she prepared to face what might be her final battle, Riva Enther understood at last that love, for justice, for freedom, for the right of all beings to choose their own path, was the greatest strength of all. The stealth shuttle sliced through the gas giant's turbulent atmosphere, its stellarite-enhanced shields barely holding against the electromagnetic storms. Inside, Riva monitored the approach vector while her strike team, 3 humans, 2 Cathari, and 1 Andoran, made final weapon checks. Their target, Project Eclipse, loomed ahead like a malevolent star, its massive framework casting strange shadows in the system's light. Through encrypted channels, they received confirmation, the Resistance fleet had begun their attack. The void erupted with weapons fire as Kane led their forces in a daring assault against the Imperial warships. The timing had to be perfect, they needed enough chaos to mask their approach, but not so much that the Empire would trigger Project Eclipse in desperation. Energy spike detected, warned Zara, their Cathari sensor specialist. They're powering up defensive systems. Stay on course, Riva commanded. June's modifications should mask our approach signature. She activated the shuttle's neural interface, connecting directly to its systems. The sensation was familiar yet strange, Imperial technology merged with human innovation created something entirely new. They reached the installation's outer perimeter undetected, but Riva knew the hardest part lay ahead. Project Eclipse's security protocols would be based on Imperial encryption, but with modifications she'd never seen. One mistake would trigger the weapon's automated defense systems. The shuttle docked with an emergency maintenance airlock, its magnetic clamps engaging silently. Riva turned to her team. Remember, our primary objective is to reach the central core and plant the Stellarite disruptors. Secondary objective is to retrieve any data about other weapons projects. If we're discovered, Protocol Omega goes into effect. They all knew what that meant. Better to destroy the station themselves than let the weapon remain operational. The team nodded grimly, their faces showing determination rather than fear. Inside the station, emergency lighting cast everything in a blood-red glow. Their footsteps echoed despite their best efforts at stealth. Riva led them through service corridors, avoiding the main passages where Imperial guards would be concentrated. They were halfway to the core when alarms blared throughout the station. But these weren't intruder alerts, something else had triggered them. Through nearby viewports, they watched the space battle intensify. The Resistance fleet, despite being outnumbered, was holding its own. The Stellarite-enhanced ships danced through Imperial formations, their improved weapons punching through superior defenses. The weapon's power core is charging, Zara reported urgently. They're going to fire. Riva made a split-second decision. New plan. Laris, Chen, plant the disruptors in the secondary nodes as planned. The rest of you, with me. We're taking a shortcut. She led them to a maintenance shaft, a direct route to the core, but one that would expose them to detection. As they climbed, Imperial security forces finally discovered their presence. Energy bolts sizzled past them, leaving scorch marks on the walls. The central core chamber was a cathedral of destruction. The weapon's heart pulsed with terrible power, its design familiar yet twisted, like everything the Empire touched. Riva recognized her father's influence in its architecture, the same ruthless efficiency that had built an empire on the bones of conquered worlds. Intruder alert. All security forces to the core chamber. The announcement echoed as doors slid open, admitting squads of Imperial guards. Leading them was a face Riva had hoped never to see again, Krell, her former second-in-command. The prodigal princess returns, he sneered, raising his weapon. Your father sends his regards. My father is a coward who builds weapons to kill worlds because he's afraid to face real warriors, Riva replied, her voice carrying across the chamber. Look around you, Krell. Look what we've become. Is this the empire you swore to serve? One that would obliterate entire civilizations out of fear. The empire brings order to chaos, Krell declared, but Riva saw uncertainty flicker in some of the guards' eyes. The empire brings death to the innocent. But there's another way. She activated her neural link, broadcasting tactical data to every screen in the chamber. Look at the battle outside. Species that never trusted each other, fighting side by side. Not for conquest, but for freedom. Not for fear, but for hope. The chamber erupted in combat. But something unexpected happened, not all the Imperial guards fired at Riva's team. Some turned their weapons on their own commanders, years of doubt finally finding expression in action. In the chaos, Riva fought her way to the core controls. The weapon was almost fully charged, its target locked on Earth. Her fingers flew across the console, implementing the virus June had designed. But the system fought back, its security protocols adapting. Riva. Kane's voice crackled through her calm, Imperial reinforcements are arriving. We can't hold them much longer. She looked up to see Krell charging toward her, his face twisted with rage. Time seemed to slow as she made her choice. The Empire had taught her that victory came through domination, through destroying your enemies completely. Instead, she activated her neural link one final time, connecting directly to Project Eclipse's core. The Stellarite in her blood, absorbed from months of working with the crystals, created a feedback loop. She became a conduit, channeling the weapon's own power back into itself. The chamber filled with blinding light. Riva felt the energy burning through her, but she held on. Through the pain, she broadcast one final message throughout the station: the Empire ends here. But you don't have to end with it. Choose a better path. Choose freedom. The explosion, when it came, was surprisingly gentle, a cascade of light that rippled outward, transforming rather than destroying. Project Eclipse's power turned inward, its doomsday potential converted into something new. When the light faded, the weapon was gone. In its place, a shield array extended across the entire system, powered by the reformed core. Not a weapon of death, but a defense for life. Riva awoke in the Defiance medical bay days later. Kane sat beside her, looking exhausted but relieved. The Empire's retreating, he reported. When their superweapon transformed, something changed. Dozens of Imperial ships and colonies are declaring independence. Your father. My father will learn to live in a galaxy he can't control, Riva said softly. The real war was never about weapons or territory. It was about showing people they have a choice. The victory came with costs. Many brave souls, human and alien alike, had fallen in the battle. But their sacrifice had purchased something precious, a chance for genuine change. In the months that followed, the alliance that had formed to resist the Empire became something more, a confederation of free worlds, united not by force but by choice. The Stellarite technology that had given them a fighting chance became a foundation for cooperation, powering shields and ships dedicated to protection rather than destruction. Riva found her place among them, no longer defined by her father's legacy or her own past. The Empire had exiled her, thinking isolation would break her spirit. Instead, it had freed her to help forge a new future, one built on unity, courage, and the unshakable belief that the strongest power in the universe wasn't fear or domination, but the simple choice to stand together against the darkness. As she stood on the Defiance Bridge, watching ships from a dozen worlds moving in harmony through the stars, Riva Enther smiled. The Empire had taught her how to wage war. Her allies, no, her family, had taught her how to build peace. And that, she realized, was the greatest victory of all.